them up one after the other. The first one is Shachar. Take it away.
Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. In my speech, I will attempt to convince you all, or at the very least some of you, that the current policy in the occupied territories, otherwise known as the West Bank, otherwise known as Judea-Samaria, is a system of apartheid. Now, before I can start making my points, I must first provide a definition of apartheid. Many people tend to dismiss claims of Israeli apartheid by saying that apartheid is a technical term that is only relevant to South Africa. However, I believe that a more general definition of the term apartheid can be very useful for a deeper analysis and historical comparison of the situation in the occupied territories. The definition of apartheid, according to the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court, is act committed in the context of an institutionalized regime of systematic oppression and domination by one racial group over any other racial group or groups, and committed with the intention of maintaining that regime. At this point, I'd like to point out that the term racial does not strictly pertain to a group whose members share a specific genetic code sequence, but rather follows the contemporary legal definition. The United Nations Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, this definition is, racial discrimination shall mean any distinction, exclusion, restriction, or preference based on race, color, descent, or national or ethnic origin. So essentially, apartheid is the systematic discrimination of a group enforced by the governing power. Alright, so now that we all know what apartheid is, let's see how it can be applied to the occupied territories. There are many different policies and many different aspects that are going on in the West Bank to which can be applied. But unfortunately, I'm very, very short on time, so I will only be looking into the difference in regards to legal procedures between Palestinians and the settlers. There are others. There are the matter of building permits, how Palestinians cannot build schools or hospitals and such basic necessities, how their freedom of movement and travel is highly restricted, how there are separate roads, how there's segregation in the educational system. But unfortunately, I only have time to focus on the legal aspects. The occupied territories are split into three different areas. Area A, which constitutes a measly 3% of the territories, which is under full Palestinian civil and military control. We'll leave that aside. Then there's Area B, which constitutes a slightly larger 25%, which is under Palestinian civil control and Israeli military control. And then there's Area C, which constitutes the vast majority of the territories, a whopping 72%, which is under full Israeli civil and military control. I'm going to focus on Area C because it constitutes the vast majority of the territories, and in some ways there's a clear situation of apartheid. In Area C, there are approximately 150,000 Palestinians and 350,000 Israeli settlers living in settlements that have been deemed illegal under international law by almost the entire international community. As an occupied territory, the governing power in Area C is the Israeli military, the IDF. In any society, in every society, civilians are supposed to be held as equal under the law. However, in Area C, settlers who commit crimes are prosecuted according to Israeli civil law, while Palestinians are prosecuted according to Israeli military law. Two separate legal systems for the two peoples constitutes a grave violation of the Palestinians' basic right to legal equality. Not only is this discrimination theoretically appalling, but this separation has practical consequences as well. Over 90% of settlers who commit a crime are not even ever indicted. And in the very rare cases in which an indictment does occur, in over 90% of those cases, no further steps are taken and the case is closed. The police often claim that this is because of lack of public interest. This is a clear case of discrimination endorsed by the governing power. That is apartheid. That is one of the many aspects that make the system and policy in the West Bank a system of apartheid. Now that we are all aware that there is a system of apartheid in occupied territories, action must be taken. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "We will have to repent in this generation not merely for the hateful words of and actions of the bad people, but for the appalling silence of the good people." You are the good people. You are the good people who can make a difference. We must act now so that future generations will not ask, why did they not speak out? Why did they not do anything? Just as we ask, why didn't the German people speak out against the atrocities? Just as we ask, why didn't the Americans speak out against the racism and discrimination? And just as we asked, why didn't the people of South Africa speak out against apartheid? We cannot afford to make the same mistakes. We cannot be just another group in history whose apathy has led to catastrophe. Not only is this apartheid detrimental to the Palestinian people, but it is corrosive to our society. It erodes the values that this country was built upon. So I implore you, no, I beg you to make a stand against the atrocities being carried out in your name. Each and every one of you is responsible for the actions of our people and of our government. Every single person here has the power to make a difference. And every single one of you has the moral obligation to use that power to create a better future. Thank you.